Today I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to be answering your most asked questions about medical coding, the CPC exam, and starting your career in this field. Every month I see hundreds of comments, and I do see the same things coming up over and over again. Things like, how do I even start studying for the CPC? Can I really get a job as a new medical coder? So in this video, I'm going to tackle these top questions, give you actionable advice, and it will make your journey a whole lot smoother. And quick reminder, if you want information specifically on how to get into a career in medical billing and coding, I have a free career masterclass at medicalcodingmasterclass.com. I will have that linked in the description below, and it will tell you all of the information you need to know. Now let's get into the questions. First is, what are the best self-study resources for the CPC exam? The first things you're going to need, of course, are your code books. ICD-10-CM, CPT, and HCPCS. Those are kind of a given because the exam is based off of the code sets. But as far as the material to teach you medical coding, what I would recommend is the step-by-step medical coding books. Now, these are my older ones. I have the digital updated versions, but they don't look as good on the video. So this is the workbook. This is the textbook. So the workbook is all cases that are like Q&A, fill in the blank, things to code by scratch, true and false. And then this is the textbook. So this is how you can actually learn medical coding. These are the best resources that you will find to self-study. The caveat for that is 2023, they gave you all of the answers to all the questions. Then every year since, they haven't. So if you purchase the 2025 versions, which I will have linked below for if you want to buy them on Amazon, you can also buy the digital versions on Amazon. I get them digitally now through Vital Source Bookshelf, which is where a lot of the AAPC books are stored as well, so they're nice and neat and tidy there. And these are what I used to teach with when I taught medical coding at a tech school, so they're my favorite. I actually prefer this over the official AAPC curriculum. But if you buy the updated ones for the current year, they're not going to have all the answers. You will not find better material to learn medical coding, but they only have like half of the answers, maybe 50 to 70%. It used to just be odds, and then it was odds, but then some of the cases they're missing, and then some of them they have full answers for. So they used to give the answers out to the instructors, but if you just purchase this independently, they're not going to give you all the answers for them. Now, as far as MedTerm, if you don't know MedTerm and Anatomy, this is the book I would recommend. Now, again, this is an older edition. I don't have the print version of the updated one. They have a 5th edition out now, but this is medical terminology and anatomy for coding. And the thing I love about this is as you're learning MedTerm and Anatomy, they tie it into medical coding scenarios. So you start getting a flavor for medical coding as you're learning all the important components of MedTerm and Anatomy and how they play into a career in medical coding. Now, there's other things out there like flashcards and apps. I don't have any ones that I'm like, oh yeah, this one is like the best and you have to get it. And the apps, I don't know. Some of them, the companies I've found to be questionable. If you're going to self-study, in addition to getting the step-by-step books, the code books, the MedTerm and Anatomy, I would also recommend get a CPC review, get the practice questions, and the official AAPC study guide. Next question is, can you give a 3-month study plan? I actually do have some downloadable ones. I think I have a 3-month, a 6-month. I might even have a 1 month. I don't remember. I know I definitely have a 3-month though. But what I would say is take your month 1 and then really focus on medical terminology, on anatomy, on guidelines. Month 2, ICD-10-CM, and start intertwining some of that CPT. And month 3 is going to be CPT and HCPCS with timed practice exams. And don't forget, take at least 2 or 3 practice tests under timed conditions, because this is a timed exam. So you want to make sure that not only are you getting the answers right, but you're getting them within a certain time frame so that when you take the timed exam, you are confident that you'll finish before that timer runs out. Next is, what are the prerequisites before starting the CPC? So honestly, officially, there's none. In order to sit for the CPC exam, the requirement is that you become a member of the AAPC and pay for the exam. Now, obviously, you're not going to do very well if you haven't had some good preparation. So you really just need a good grasp of MedTerm, anatomy, compliance, and then the medical coding. If you want to start a program in medical coding, they will oftentimes include that. If you start a program in medical coding and they don't include MedTerm, there are like free resources you can use, like all kinds of YouTube tutorials. Sometimes you can get free courses through local colleges and institutions, through your library. And of course, I talked about the medical terminology and anatomy coding book. What are your top tips for passing the CPC exam on the first try? In this case, oh gosh, definitely time management. I've seen some people that are like, I didn't finish in time and that's why I didn't pass. Also knowing your guidelines, not memorizing the guidelines, but knowing them enough to be able to efficiently reference them. If you have a case where you're like, oh gosh, I don't know what the guideline is for HIV, but I know it's in my Chapter 1 guidelines, I'm going to go and reference it now. And be very careful about what you are tabbing and highlighting and notating in your book. Some people it's really helpful, but other people having a rainbow colored CPT book just kind of slows them down. Next is, what are some of the most missed CPC exam questions? So I would focus a lot on evaluation and management and cardiology. Those are the top 2 areas. Sometimes little things like modifiers can trip people up, surgical coding. I actually have an entire video where I talk specifically about the top missed concepts for the CPC exam and go over case scenarios, and I will show you that video at the end of this video. Is medical coding still viable in 2025? Yes. So medical coding is still in demand, especially with the shift to a lot more inpatient facility work. So if you can specialize in that, you don't have to start in inpatient. You can start in Pro-Fee and then get another certification in inpatient. But healthcare itself isn't going anywhere. There's lots of healthcare growth. We still project, and this is even recently since the advent of, AI and healthcare and stuff, there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of oversight because there's just so much complexity. There's so much that's changing, and there's a lot of regulations and even court cases where AI is not going to work out from a legal standpoint. Next, what are the realistic job prospects for medical coders? So there are entry-level positions, they do exist, but you need to have some persistence and you do need to have strategy, and you need to make sure that when you're applying for jobs that you understand that if you're taking the stance of I'm just going to apply for every single possible thing, that some of those positions that you might be applying for might be for different types of medical coding or positions that your certifications aren't the right fit for those positions. And a lot of coders don't start directly in coding. They start in billing, they start in support roles, in medical records, in registration, in scheduling, or even some temporary or contract roles before they wind up moving into full-time coding roles. I am among those people. I did not start out in medical coding. I started out in charge entry, and then I worked in denials, and then I worked in medical coding. How can I transition from RN or medical assistant, etc.? So your clinical experience is actually a huge advantage. I would really highlight that in your resume. Employers love when you have experience, not just working within the healthcare sphere, but like that you can work with the medical record systems, the billing systems. You're familiar with how these pieces for medical coding tend to come into play with things like orders. So they love when you at least know how to navigate the medical systems. If you're looking to transition from a clinical role to a medical coding role, you still though need a medical coding certification. I would look towards the CPC, or if you want to work in inpatient coding, the CCS with the HEMA. What is the typical career path? Most people start with a CPC. Like, it's just that good base credential. You don't have to start with a CPC. You could start in risk adjustment or inpatient coding. Technically, you can start in auditing, but that's not typical. But most people start with a CPC, and then once you've kind of built that good foundation, you can get whatever other certifications you want in risk adjustment, in cardiology coding. You can branch off into orthopedics. You can branch off into dermatology, whatever you like, and even into things like auditing or education. What are the biggest challenges for beginners? So usually the biggest challenge in medical coding for beginners is finding that first job. Sometimes you wind up with like imposter syndrome and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I do so well in class, but now I'm trying to find a job and I can't do it. Like, and even just when you get that first job, still the imposter syndrome is just like, oh my gosh, like, what did I learn? Like, do I know anything? And it's very overwhelming those first couple of weeks, but you have to stay persistent. There's so much going on in medical coding. There's yearly changes. There's keeping up with your continuing education credits. So even things like networking can really make a huge difference. Getting involved in your local chapters, practicing, staying up to date, going to meetings and stuff where you learn new things about medical coding, where you learn about the code updates coming up and kind of sometimes even the reasoning behind it. It can make things a little less stressful. Next, let's get into some exam logistics questions. So what materials are allowed for the CPC exam? You are allowed to bring either your own physical copies of the books. They have to be current calendar year or 1 calendar year prior. The CPT book has to be the AMA edition, and they have to be official printed books. They can't be Xeroxed copies. I know I keep getting asked that every now and then. You can't bring photocopies of any of the books. They have to be the official copies, current year or prior calendar year. You can't use future calendar years. So if you're sitting for your exam in November and you've already got your next year's ICD-10-CM book, you can't use that yet. You wouldn't want to because they don't change the exams until January 1 of the year, and they're based off of calendar year. So you can bring your code books and your ID, and that's basically it. Like, well, that's the only materials you're really allowed to bring into the exam. You can't bring paper or pencil or calculators. On the exam platform, they'll have things like a calculator that's embedded in there. They'll have a digital notepad where you can type in notes. They'll have an E&M calculator if you have E&M calculators. So that's the only calculator that's really allowed for the exam, is whatever is embedded into the platform. You can't bring any kind of digital tools or resources or anything like that, just your code books. If you redeem your exam voucher and you're like, I would just want to use the ebooks, you can do that. You can select to use ebooks, and they will just embed the correct versions of the ebooks in your exam platform. Next, how to manage test anxiety. Oh, that's a tough one. If you're going in person, know where you're going and where you're walking into. You can contact your exam center ahead of time if you have questions. If you're like, where am I putting my car keys? Can I bring a sweatshirt? Like that kind of question. And also just practicing the timed tests, making sure that you're reading carefully through all of those emails that the AEPC sends you, because they'll send you emails with instructions, and sometimes people don't pay as close attention as they should, and they'll do things like not go through their computer tests to check to make sure that they have the right network settings and so forth, and then that really stresses them out on their exam day for those remote ones. Like, I've had people tell me I freaked out because I didn't realize I wasn't allowed to have my second monitor plugged in, or I didn't realize that I wasn't allowed to lay on my bed for the exam. So really, really read carefully through that information that the AEPC provides you, because they really do want you to feel prepared and feel at ease for the exam. They don't want you stressed out. All right, so that's it for Q&A. I hope that helped clear up some of the top questions that I get about medical coding careers, about the CPC exam. If you've got an exam date coming up, drop it in the comments so we can all cheer you on. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and don't forget to check out that free masterclass that I have that's linked below to kickstart your career in medical coding and find out about my recommended program, Preppy. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.